Let's go.
You're listening to Making Data Simple, where we make the world of data effortless, relevant, and yes, even fun.
Let's go.
Hey, podcast listeners, this is Al Martin. Welcome back to Making Data Simple. As always, we appreciate you being here. Get us some feedback on almartintalksdata at gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And please, rate us, tell us how we're doing. We'd appreciate that as well. Today, I have Emmanuel Letouzé. I hope I got that right. He'll tell me later. But he is the co-founder and director of DataPop Alliance, which is a global coalition on big data, artificial intelligence. He is also a visiting scholar and fellow at MIT. And interestingly, he is a political cartoonist. So, Emmanuel, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. We're going to have a lot of things to talk about, given your background. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Well, yeah, thanks to you.
I should also mention, because it's very well or very much due, that you've got a postdoctoral on big data and human development at MIT, a PhD in demography and population studies at University of California, Berkeley, MS, it just keeps on going, man. MS International Affairs, MS Applied Economics, BA at Political Science. You'd like been in school forever.
Yes, so I did spend quite a bit of time in school, both in France first and then in the US. Total, I don't know, maybe around 15 years, I think. But I did do other things in the meantime. Like worked. Also had kids and did a bunch of things, including cartooning also.
Well, I figured that, and we will talk about the cartooning, but I guess the most important question I have right now is, do you sleep at night? Do you have any fun whatsoever? Or are you just going crazy all the time on all your degrees and the work and the kids and everything else?
Well, I try to sleep, but no, to be honest, I haven't slept very much in this life.
You were looking for a date, and then you decided to say this life, huh? Well, fantastic. We also have something in common. Congratulations, by the way, 6 weeks.
Thank you.
That means you are truly not sleeping. I've got 3 daughters of my own. They're a little bit older right
likewise,
now, but so we should talk. We could have a podcast on that alone, I think.
Yes.
We're not to get off on a tangent here real quick, but speaking of my daughters, we have all this. Where are you located right now, by the way?
New York. In
New
Brooklyn.
York. So we, at this point in time, this is like coronavirus week where, everything's being shut down. And I wonder how all these actions, and maybe you have data on this as we're going to get into it, but all these actions are going to really be beneficial because I get home last night and, my daughters, all 3 of them are in college, and they've been next week. They were on spring break this week. Next week, they have gotten the week off, and then they're going to go to virtual, like most colleges now. So I get home last night. The first thing I say to my middle daughter, I said, "Hey, what have you been doing all day?" She goes, "Oh, I went to the mall." And I said, you're supposed to have social distancing. That's what this stuff is all about. And her immediate response was, I use hand sanitizer. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. I just wonder, but I think I just represented like every kid in America. So I don't know how this is going to work. We'll have to see. Anyway, so look, wow, what an eclectic skill set. And I say that with, nothing but praise. Let's go reverse order and start as a political cartoonist. How did you get into that within all your technical acumen that you have everywhere else? Then you also draw, huh?
Yes, so we were talking about our kids. So all kids draw, and so I used to draw as a kid, and just contrary to a lot of people, I never stopped. So I kept on drawing and doing like comic strips and cartoons as I was growing up, and then so I was sort of like the political cartoonist of the high school newspaper, and then at university, and then so I really started. So I organized in the mid 90s. So I was about 20. and I organized a debate. So I was doing a lot of cartooning, but sort of like a bit for fun, and I organized a debate in my school about censorship and self censorship. In like press censorship and self censorship with people from Charlie Hebdo, so the magazine where there were the terrorist attacks in 2015, and and so I got to draw live with one of the cartoonists during this debate. So he invited me to draw live with him, and unfortunately, he was one of the cartoonists who was killed. So during the attacks,
Oh, really?
and so and then a couple of days after this event, the chief editor of the local regional newspaper, who was one of the panelists in the event, called me and just asked me if I wanted to be their sort of like staff cartoonist. And so that was really the starting point of my sort of like so-called like quotation mark like professional career as a cartoonist. So I did that for 7 years while finishing my studies, and then since then I've always done cartoons, and I actually use cartoons a lot in my work. So we could also talk about that, because I mean, for me it's not separate. It's really sort of like there's a continuum, and I use cartooning to try and express like different things and also touch different audiences than I do with papers or writing or public speaking, for instance.
Look, that's an incredible story. Also, a very sad story. Was this a friend of yours?
No, we're not friends. So I mean, in the sense that I met him only a couple of times after this. I also met a few of the Charlie Hebdo cartoonists afterwards in the late 1990s. I did illustrations for the student guide of my university, Sciences Po in Paris, with two other cartoonists. And so I just met them. I had met them a couple of times, but of course they were sort of like icons or symbols for me. And so I was extremely shocked and sad when I mean, more than
Yeah.
sad. I was really devastated when that happened. I was actually in Paris on the day of the attacks, and and I just really couldn't stop crying. And but and actually, just quickly, a few months, actually a few weeks later, there was an event at the Alliance Française in New York about, it was called like Après Charlie, and there was Art Spiegelman, who was the author of Mouse, who was also a panelist. So I got to be on a panel with Art Spiegelman to talk about like freedom of expression and freedom of the press and things like that. But likewise, for me, there is a continuum between being a cartoonist and being a data scientist or a political scientist, and questions about freedom of expression. You talked about the coronavirus, and the role of information, the role of the free press, is and the role of cartoonists and journalists. For me, that's part of the same kind of like vision and some of the things I believe in and want to work on.
So, what do you consider yourself then? I mean, what you say? Are you a data scientist? Are you a cartoonist? Are you both? Or is that even? Are those two not even the descriptions you would characterize your brand as?
It's a good question, because I've asked myself, a few times, and I'm being asked also sometimes, but I've stopped asking myself the question. Mostly because it sounds a bit I don't know, pompous or just like basic, but I think that you are more what you do than any other sort of like tagline or. And so so I'm sort of like as most of us, I'm just what I do. So I'm an economic demographer, because I have a PhD in economic demography, but I'm also sometimes a political scientist. I'm a cartoonist because I do cartoons. I'm a dad. But I really believe that we are just pretty much our actions.
Shoot, labels are bad anyway. It sounds like you're, just if you want to label it, is very successful because you're in very successful in many different areas. Are your cartoons all around humor and politics, or are they straight politics sometime? Or are they always humor?
It's also they're mostly I would say they're like social sort of social political mostly. Um, they try to be funny, so I always try to find it's like an angle. Um, they are very much. I don't know how much you or the audience will be familiar with that, but there is they really come from I would say a European tradition of political cartooning, which is which can be pretty dry. So I don't use symbols, for instance, of the dove of peace or things like that. They try to be pretty acidic, but
And do you put like data science in all of them too, or some of them have data science, some that doesn't? Because one of the ones I have seen your cartoons, they're very good, by the way, and one of them had a guy sitting out like on the beach. It's raining, and he's looking at his iPad or something. He says, "According to my model, it's bright and sunny right now. The weather is wrong."
yes.
Meanwhile, it's raining.
So no, not all of them are about data science or algorithms or big data. More and more are because I don't have a whole lot of time on my hands. Yeah, so I try to focus my the time I spend drawing on things that can also be useful for the rest of my work. So drawing about data science, or as I'm doing right now. So the cartoon that you described was done a couple of weeks ago for one of Data Pop's Alliance newsletter, and it's going to be used in a book as an illustration for a book that that I'm illustrating about algorithms, which is going to be published in Spain in the next few months. So more and more are about data science as commentary.
Makes sense. All right, so let's switch a little bit. Although that's very interesting, we could probably talk the whole time on that. I know you've had a long academic career. I count at least one bachelor's, a couple masters, PhD in fields ranging from mathematics, political science, economics, internal affairs, and then ending up with a PhD with work in demography and population studies. How does one I don't know how to ask this question. How does one assimilate all those different areas of study? What's the common thread? And kind of give us your history there in terms of your interests in all those different degrees.
I think there's a. First of all, I think there's a thread. So there are commonalities in my interests across those different disciplines. Also, you can't be an expert in all of them. So, I don't consider myself an expert in many or most of them for that matter. So I do have hopefully a deeper expertise in economic demography and in demography, because that's where I did my the subject in which I did both my first master's and then my PhD. But I do have I try to put my work as a demographer in a broader context, and this context has to be political. You also have to understand the political economy of societies. Like math and statistics are pretty central to demography. So there are lots of connections and threads. But the core of my let's say academic skills are economic demography, and from there I sort of explored other fields.
Well, you must be great at a cocktail party, debating politics, economics, and then data, which is the central nervous system of the world today. you got it all right there, man. I think you got a leg up with all your studies and all the people that you hang around. If you do hang around friends, because you got so many girls and you're doing so many or getting so many degrees. So let's talk about demography a bit, and kind of to the last comments you made is, that I would imagine that field of study is typically broad. But I would imagine, but hopefully you'll tell me that it deals with like population studies, birth, death rates, immigration. I don't know. You fill in the blanks. I'd like to learn a little bit about demography, what you've learned, what you're studying, what intrigues you, what surprises you.
Um, yeah, I'm really happy you asked because demography is one of those social sciences that is not very well known. Very few people know what demography actually means. So it means the study of population, usually these are like small departments in sociology. There are very few universities where you have a standalone demography department, but I've always found it like to be fascinating because it's about, at the heart, as you mentioned, it's about what makes a population the way it is. So it's how people live, die, and how they move between those two events. But then it's also, there are different branches of demography, like social demography, formal demography, which is pretty mathematical, and economic demography. And so economic and social demography touches on things like poverty, inequality. So you mentioned migration. Why do people move across boundaries? Why do people go at such length to try and cross the Mediterranean Sea or other borders at the risk of their lives? And so there are lots. When you think about like population as your subject, as your topic of analysis of interest, then there are lots of other variables that you can consider. But what I find very fascinating about demography is both the fact that we as demographers tend to look at very long-term trends. So we're not only interested in the short term, we're interested in how technology and population, for example, sort of like what was the relationship over time between population and technology. And of course, today, in the age of data, those questions resonate like very loudly, but they're not novel. Like someone like Malthus, who is one of the greatest demographers of all time, worked on that question more than 200 years ago. And we're also interested in public health epidemics, for instance. So studies about the Black Death or the Spanish flu are like core, like demographic. There's a whole literature on that. And then there are lots of tools that demographers use to correct for sample bias, to understand the quality of statistics, the quality of data, the political economy in which the data are collected. So so it sounds like a bit of this small, rusty discipline, but I think it's actually very relevant to today's challenges.
Since you've done studies on the Spanish flu and coronavirus is the topic of the day, I don't know, maybe it's too much of a topic if you'd rather not hit that one. But is there anything you can predict or what you've seen or what you think about the coronavirus, given your studies and your knowledge around Spanish flu and other pandemics of the like?
So it's not an easy question, of course. So I've as you mentioned, I've had the chance to study quite a few like topics and subjects, but like public health is not one of them. So I'm by no means an expert in public health and in epidemiology. But still, I think so. I'm trying to think, as a lot of people are, about how to react, what this means, what's next. So both at a micro individual level and also at a more like macro, like long-term level. And I think there are a couple of things that start to sort of coalesce in my mind about the coronavirus and the intersection with data. And so one of them is that clearly there is a lot of room for data, big data, AI approaches for, I would say, both responding to the current crisis. So you've seen that done in China, in South Korea, also in Singapore. So the use of data and big data for population tracking, etc. And it comes with lots of privacy questions. But there is this sort of this possible use of data to actually monitor population dynamics, etc. during the crisis. There's also room, I think, for using data for allocation of services. If you have to send like a mobile testing like unit across a state, like the size of Texas, for instance, you can use AI and machine learning and data to actually optimize like the route. So you would tell this car or those 10 cars or 100 cars, this is where you need to drive to actually reach the greatest number of people possible. So that's one let's say one area where data can be helpful in such a context. Then of course there is the epidemiology side with the modeling of the spread. Then there is of course also the core medical field. Like I think it's going to be possible probably to detect in the future who has like symptoms based on AI, or to predict where there may be cases that may occur. But I will then say this about the long term. Like for me, my big question right now is, what are we going to learn from that? What are we going to learn from both the origin, the response or the lack of response of governments? Why has it spread, or why will it have spread so fast? Because we live in a very interconnected world, etc. Because we travel so much, also partly because of climate change. So I'm very interested in trying to think about the deep root causes and what this may change in the future. So I'm happy to elaborate a bit on that if you want.
Yeah, please do. I mean, I'm intrigued. Go ahead, continue.
So what I described initially, you can think of it as the use of AI, of artificial intelligence or data in preparedness, in mitigation, in response initiatives to the crisis. So you use AI or data or big data as an instrument. But I'm also interested in thinking about how you could use AI as a sort of inspiration, so to speak. And this is this concept of human AI that I've been thinking, writing about, in particular with people like Sandy Pentland at MIT, who actually coined the term human AI. And so a human AI it would be a system like our world, where humans and artificial intelligence would work together, but also where like our social systems would work a bit more the way an AI system works. And how does an AI system works? An AI system being Google Maps, for instance, or Amazon, that sort of like run on AI. And so what they do is that they are very good at doing what allows them to reach their objectives. And they learn from data. So this is the gist of machine learning. They learn from feedback from data. And so I think maybe with this crisis and others, it's time that we as humans, as societies, learn a bit better from what works and what doesn't work, or that we learn that there are certain things that we do, overconsumption, for example, that lead to bad results. And so in that sort of light, in this sort of line of argumentation, I'm very interested in thinking about and seeing how the world is going to change after the coronavirus. What are the things that the sort of habits, the sort of behaviors that will have changed because we will have recognized that these lead to bad outcomes?
Are you not worried that like this is going to be over though, and everybody's just going to move on versus driving those learnings you're talking about?
It's possible. It is possible. And the answer is that,
That's what
yeah,
I worry.
I don't know. I think it depends on many different things. It depends on the duration of the crisis and the depth of the shock. But I think human populations are. I think it's going to be a large enough effect that some things will stay. And I think you start seeing that people. It's a bit like a sobering moment where people like reflect, yeah, maybe think back, and you stay home with your family. You get a better sense of the importance of some relationships. You get worried about people you like, etc. So, like, one thing for sure is that I will, for one, travel way less. I've been traveling a lot for work these past few years, as many of us do, and I think it's just nonsense. I mean, the, yeah, how much CO2 have been emitting traveling around the world makes no sense. I mean, what I can say at a conference is not worth burning the ocean. So I think all of us will need to take a hard look in the mirror and wonder what we can change, and hopefully at the aggregate level that will make a difference.
Very good. So look, I think we've talked about we talked about being a cartoonist. We've talked about data pop. We've delved into many different aspects of data. What does it mean to be a visiting scholar and fellow at MIT? Are you teaching there right now, or are you doing research?
I have an affiliation with a group, so which is the so I mean with so like two groups. One is a human dynamics group at the Media Lab, and the other is another group that is, yeah, very closely affiliated with it, which is called MIT Connection Science, and both are headed by Sandy Pentland. And so it means that I mean, I live in New York, live in Brooklyn, but I go there every once in a while, usually either once a month or once a trimester. I've recently taught a class to visitors from Chile at MIT Sloan about big data, AI, open algorithms, and development. And we also have a network of research affiliates as Data Pop Alliance, and a lot of those people are either current students or former students of the MIT. So it's like being part of a network formally.
You have your hands full, man. You're doing a lot of different things. Very interesting things. Where should our listeners go to learn more about what you're working on?
So I mean, of course, there is our website, so datapopoliance.org, and then on the website there are quite a few resources. So not just about our work, but about like readings and videos, and there's a resource section which and also for my cartoons, if people are interested. I used to have a website, but now it's been down for a couple of years, and I haven't had the time to work on it. So I have
Really? No time?
no time, and so yeah, I have a Facebook like a web page which is called Manu Cartoons. Manu being like my nickname and how I sign my cartoons. So it's MANU, like Manu Ginobili or Manu
Yeah.
Chao. So Manu Cartoons on Facebook. So that's where I post what I do as a cartoonist.
A man of many talents. Okay, we will put that in the show notes to make sure everybody knows where to reach you. Hey, I've got a quick game I want to play before we close up shop. You game? This is would you rather. In other words, I'll give you two different choices. You got to pick one, and you can't. I'm not going to be easy on you. You know this, or it's no fun. So you got to pick one side or the other. All
I'm
right.
usually not very good
Ready?
at that. I always try to have it both ways. It's
Yeah. You want your cake like everybody. You want your cake and to eat it too. I know how that
okay,
works.
but
We've had a couple people really struggle.
okay, all right. But I'll be okay. I'll play game. All right.
So I'll say would you rather, and we'll make it quick. You can, and then if you want to say a word or two, you can just to explain your choice. But should be easy. America or France?
Spain.
Spain. Now come see. See? Oh, come on. You're not gonna give me one of
Um,
those?
no, okay. I will say America because I've been here 15 years. I've had great opportunities. I have three daughters who are also American citizens. So I will say America.
See, you can do this. Good. All right. Code or draw? Would you rather code or draw?
Draw.
All right. Nonprofit or profit?
Nonprofit.
Any reason for that?
Well, here, because I think you can actually have it both ways. Being a nonprofit doesn't mean that you can't get money. So practically, you can still make a living. But still, I very much like the spirit of nonprofit. Yeah, that's why.
All right. Politics or economics?
Politics.
Harvard or MIT?
Oh, that's a very that's a very difficult one. Yeah, I would say MIT because I've spent more time at MIT, and I really like the MIT Media Lab. So yeah, it went through a bit of a rough time a couple of months ago with the resignation of its director, but it's still a wonderful place where it's described as an anti-disciplinary place where you have artists, activists, scientists, and there are lots of amazing things that come out of the Media Lab. So it's pretty dear and close to my heart.
All right. East Coast or West Coast?
Yeah, tough one. I did my PhD at Berkeley, but I've spent. It depends on which country. I would say. I guess you're referring to the U.S. I come from Brittany in France, so I'm more of a West Coast person. But in the context of the U.S., I would say East Coast, and yeah, New York drives me crazy at times, but I still love New York.
My wife was in New York this week, and this is, when we got all this Corona stuff. She says there's nobody here.
Yeah,
It's because they're all housed up. All right. Berkeley or Columbia?
Berkeley.
Open data or closed data?
Yeah, definitely open data with a capital O and a capital D, meaning that it stands for the movement, that it stands for the philosophy, not just about opening up any data, especially personal data. So yeah, open data as a paradigm, so to speak.
Nice. All right. Code for social good or code for economic good?
Um, Yeah, well, if I had to choose, I would say social good because because I think economic good or economic welfare is a bit too narrow. But I would have some reservations about for. I'm not a big fan of this notion of for social good or for good, and it's a longer discussion because I think it should be embedded. It should be sort of like endogenized in everything we do so that it's not just a side project. But to answer your question, I would say for social good.
Well, Emmanuel, thank you for being here. You've been a fabulous guest, extremely knowledgeable. I mean, any one of these topics we could probably spend all day on. So I thank you for taking the time to be with us. And look, congratulations on your new daughter. And I pray that you're going to have time to do all of the great stuff that you're involved with.
Well, I hope I will be able to do less. I think focusing is something that one has to learn to commit to, and I don't do enough of that. So yeah, I should probably focus a bit more. But I'm interested in all of it. But yeah.
Well, Sounds like you're killing all the areas though, and that's all you could ask for. So thank you again. I appreciate it. Listeners, again, thank you. And as I've always stated, almartintalksdata@gmail.com. Love to hear from you. Till next time, we'll see you on the podcast. Talk to you later.
Thanks for listening to the Making Data Simple podcast, where we make data fun. Be sure to visit ibmbigdatahub.com/podcast to access the show notes and uncover even more great episodes. Remember, the views expressed here are those of the host and its guests, and do not necessarily represent the views of IBM. Until next time,
Let's go.
over and out.